The Koch network dumps Trump. Americans for Prosperity won't back him in 2024, ending an awkward marriage. Last week, veteran Wall Street Journal columnist Gerald Seib posed a provocative question: can the GOP become a real working-class party? This past Sunday, Americans for Prosperity, the flagship advocacy group of the massive Koch network, gave its answer: not if this means that Donald Trump or anyone with his views will lead the party. In a blunt memo, Seidel, AFP's CEO, stated the hard truth as she saw it: the Republican Party is nominating bad candidates who are advocating for things that go against core American principles. And the American people are rejecting them. This isn't a reference only to the party's 2022 fiasco. The loudest voice in each political party sets the tone for the entire election, Ms. Seidel wrote, and, in a presidential year, that's the presidential candidate. We need to turn the page on the past, which means having a president in 2025 who represents a new chapter. This won't happen by itself, she continued. AFP intends to rally around a GOP candidate who embraces the principles of individual freedom and limited constitutional government and who can win the general election. To avoid the proliferation of candidates, which helped Mr. Trump win the nomination in 2016, the organization reportedly will settle on its favored candidate by the end of the summer. Tension between the libertarian-leaning AFP and the populism of the Republican Party's Trump wing is nothing new. AFP has long stood for free trade and the elimination of tariffs, a moderate immigration policy, limited government and fiscal restraint, including cuts to Social Security and Medicare, all positions Mr. Trump opposed long before he undertook his quest for the GOP nomination in 2015. When AFP published its list of acceptable nominees that year, Mr. Trump wasn't on it. 3 years later, then-President Trump returned the favor, using Twitter to inveigh against the globalist Koch brothers, whose opposition to restrictions on immigration and trade had made them a total joke in real Republican circles. Still, as the distinguished political analyst Thomas B. Edsall observed in 2018, these verbal fireworks had not prevented the combatants from doing business together to their mutual advantage. Mr. Trump's anti-immigrant rhetoric helped bring more working-class Americans into the Republican coalition, and the victorious Trump administration enacted the tax and regulatory policies the Koch network had long sought. The list of successful Koch-supported policies did not end there. During the Trump presidency, public lands were open to mining, enforcement of worker safety rules and environmental regulations was relaxed, men and women with ties to industry were appointed to key regulatory posts, and individuals with the philosophy favored by the Kochs were confirmed at every level of the federal judiciary. In July 2018, Charles Koch told his network's key donors that, "We've made more progress in the past 5 years than I've made in the previous 50. That was then. Now AFP has severed this symbiotic relationship. A cynic would say that the Koch forces have abandoned Mr. Trump only because they've gotten everything they could out of him. But it's more complicated than that. Days before the 2020 election, in an interview with the Journal's Douglas Belkin, Mr. Koch took responsibility for the growth of bitter partisanship to which his backing of the Tea Party had contributed. "Boy, did we screw up," he wrote in the book he had recently published. What a mess. He also expressed regret that the administration he helped bring to power had permitted the largest government spending in history. He discovered that you can be a small government supporter or a populist, but not both. Events after the election may also have contributed to AFP's new stance. As the invasion of the Capitol raged on January 6, the organization's CEO issued a statement denouncing the violence. A week later, AFP made it clear that elected officials who encouraged and defended what happened were unlikely to receive its endorsement and assistance. The organization seemed to understand that support for constitutional governance, one of its core principles, meant little without the rule of law, which Mr. Trump and his backers had proved willing to undermine. In 2018, Mr. Edsall predicted that the alliance between libertarian and populist conservatives was unstable and would break down. Events have vindicated this view. Among populist intellectuals, libertarian has become a term of abuse, and the commitment to a limited state has given way to support for big government as a means to conservative ends, especially in shaping culture. Have the anti-populist forces in the conservative coalition waited too long to take their stand? Over the past decade, the brand of sunny, optimistic conservatism Ronald Reagan championed has given way to something much darker. If Reagan were a candidate for the Republican presidential nomination in 2024, he would have a hard time winning. I wonder whether anyone trying to follow the path Reagan blazed would stand a chance, even with Americans for Prosperity's full support, in what remains of the party he led to 2 landslide victories.